Sony was once the top dog in the Japanese gaming market. They were loved and they acted like they cared about their consumers who were spending every penny on their games and consoles, but Sony decided to switch paths a few years ago and focus on a plan that was all about reaching as many people as possible, and they focused on appealing to global audiences, and ever since then, Nintendo has been crushing Sony in the Japanese market, and like you all know, they've also been doing great in Western markets as well. But the bad news keeps rolling in for Sony because there's not a single PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4 game in the Japanese sales charts, and they are completely missing from the entire top 30 list. But really quickly, before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month or supporting via direct donations. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So we are going to start off with this Push Square article. It says, for the first time since the late 1980s, the Japanese sales charts are dominated by a single console. The latest Famitsu results, which track physical software sales from 2nd of August through the 8th of August, are completely occupied by Nintendo Switch titles. I personally really love my Nintendo Switch. I buy a ton of games for my Switch, but I also buy, a fair amount of games for my other consoles. I just really like my Switch. A lot of other people really do love the Switch as well. But it says, to clarify, every game from 1st position to 30th position belongs to the House of Mario's hybrid hardware. There were times during the 90s where Nintendo completely conquered the charts, but software was divided between the Famicom, the Super Famicom, and Game Boy. This is the first time every single game has belonged to a single piece of hardware. This is actually pretty crazy news. It says, of course, from the perspective of a PlayStation website, this shows how poorly Sony's games are selling in the company's home nation. I've been talking over the years about Sony kind of abandoning the Japanese gaming market, their home market, and kind of switching to this focus on global appeal and focusing on their games and selling them to a global audience. It is something that Sony's decided to do, and apparently it's not working out too well for them. The people in the Japanese gaming market are pretty furious with Sony, and there are even people who have come forward like analysts and said the Japanese market is falling out of love with Sony. It says, now there are, of course, caveats. The data only takes into account physical software sales, and we know that PlayStation has been skewing more towards digital as of late, although uptake in Japan has been marginally lower than in Western territories. It's important to also keep in mind here that we are not talking about a new system. We are talking about the Switch, which is 4 years old, and the PlayStation 5 has been out for over a year now. Some people are trying to say a huge reason is for the lack of consoles on the market, but they've sold a significant amount of PlayStation 5s now. Maybe not as many as some people expected, but there's enough where at least one game should be breaking a top chart from people purchasing it. Plus, aside from PlayStation 5s, there's not even any PlayStation 4 games on the list here, and everyone already has the PlayStation 4s that they wanted. And if we head on over to this Nintendo Life article, you can see what is in the top charts right now, and they are not new games. Number 1 is Minecraft. Minecraft has been out for such a long time now. I'm not saying it's a bad game, I'm just saying this is what's breaking sales charts. There's a Skyward Sword HD, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Ring Fit Adventure. We've got a couple different games like Mario games, Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We've also got Super Mario Party. There are some new games on this list scattered in here, but a lot of them are just games that have been out for years that people continue to repurchase. Now, even a few months ago, I talked about how Nintendo was crushing Sony's sales in Japan because they were focusing on fun instead of activism. Is Nintendo perfect? Not at all. They have definitely done things with games that people don't like, from monetization systems to gameplay, but they have made progress, which is good. They've stopped forcing third-party developers to censor their games for the most part. They've listened to fan feedback when it comes to their flagship franchises, and they've been trying to focus on fun, which is what games are all about. And I wanted to reference this article I had read a few months ago. It says Nintendo destroys PlayStation sales in Japan, focusing on fun instead of activism. So it says, ever since Nintendo announced the now ridiculously popular Nintendo Switch, the Big N has managed to keep itself on top of the competition. It says, given how Sony and Microsoft spent most of the last year gearing up for the release of their new respective next-gen consoles, last year was a particularly great year for Nintendo, as the Kyoto-based company essentially had little to no competition when it came to console sales. Now we do have the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X on the market, and Nintendo is also releasing the new Nintendo Switch model soon, the OLED version, which I think a lot of people are also looking forward to. All of the pre-orders have sold out relatively quickly. There's no pre-orders online right now where you can get one, unless of course you're supporting scalpers, and no one should want to support scalpers. But it says Animal Crossing New Horizons, for instance, was Nintendo's best-selling title of 2020. That was a fantastic game. I think that Nintendo has really been bringing it lately with their games. They have had a couple duds, but I think that they've done a pretty damn good job. It says, as if that wasn't enough, the report also revealed that the Nintendo Switch was the best-selling hardware platform in units sold for a record of 24 consecutive months. Even better for the company, according to Ace Research Institute senior analyst Hideki Yasuda, Nintendo has practically eradicated PlayStation from the Japanese market, as in 2021, this was back in March, a staggering 99% of video game sales belonged to Nintendo Switch and only 1% to PlayStation 4. And in a recent interview, Nintendo's president revealed that the focus for the company, in a completely opposite direction from Sony's, is to make video games that are fun. I think that this is a huge focus that Sony isn't focusing on. Sony cares about activism and global audiences and making as much money as possible, and I don't blame them for wanting to make money. They are a company at the end of the day, and so is Nintendo. But clearly Nintendo's president and the people with Nintendo are saying things that people actually want to hear. It says, according to him, when Nintendo researches new technology, they always focus on how their ideas need to be fun. Now, while no one is arguing that the quality is there from a technical standpoint, most of Sony's games focus more on narrative rather than gameplay. I personally do not hate games that are more of a movie-like experience. You have minimal gameplay, but a ton of story. Some people do not like that experience. Some people do. I don't think it's bad to have titles mixed in there that are more movie-like experiences, but at the same time, I do think it is important to focus on fun and not focus on pushing political agendas into titles. It says a little bit about The Last of Us Part 2. It talks about how it basically only existed to push an agenda over enjoyable gameplay, and in fact, the game's creative director, Neil Druckmann, actually said for us with The Last of Us specifically, we don't use the word fun, which isn't what people want to hear. People play games for escapism and to have fun, not to be told, oh, this is an opinion you have to like to be able to enjoy this story. Nintendo is definitely doing something right while Sony is doing something terribly wrong, and there has been a lot of backlash when it comes to Sony over the years. People have really fallen out of love with Sony, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon until they change their tune and start doing things like this, focusing on fun instead of activism. Their sales are going to continue to stay where they're at, and they're not going to grow unless they do change something in this bland, basic formula that they've got going on. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.